donors are here, but I couldn't fly them to New York this year to see what's going on. So this is a great way to, actually see what's happening in this industry and through the lens of UT students. So they get to see
But you said
students
you
actually
don't know
tackling
why
the
you're on the
topic.
board.
Yeah. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm about to make it up. Dude, I have tons of updates. I think
Dude, I need some makeup. Yeah.
you don't need makeup. I didn't put makeup. Do you have tea with you? Hold
I
on.
do.
Tea Time Tuesdays
Ready
with
to
Gavin
party.
and Marc. Say something about this live video. What do I have to say about this live video? Unscripted. So
Awesome. Awesome. Beautiful.
Cool. And then I'll message. We'll give him some time. I mean, you're the one who joined early, so.
No, it's my fault. I'm early.
But so, you were helping them out, and that's why you're on the board?
Yeah, no, so yes, exactly. So it's a national
Okay.
nonprofit spun out of sustainability consulting for the UK government. So it now works individually. Fashion Forward works with brands like Levi's and Patagonia, and they audit their supply chain, talk to them about their practices, and then try and share those better practices with other industry members. Howdy.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good to see you.
So
Always a pleasure.
Gavin, of course we pushed this because Gavin needed time and he joined 5 minutes early. So
He's a very timely guy. I'm just not.
Yeah.
No,
No,
I'm a control freak. I started this UT chapter of the Fashion Forward nonprofit that you attended that event. And we have a student campus director who's a junior. And I was, they're like, we're going to plan our own event. And I was like, okay, sure. Hands off. Let's see how this goes. They're kicking ass. Like,
Awesome.
This is magic right now. They found their own speakers. They sent out their own agenda. It's all happening and I don't have to touch it.
Well, tell us about Fashion Forward. What's it all about?
So founded by Alexandra McNair Quinn, she worked in fashion design and in sustainability, worked for one of the British lords, helping companies fix their supply chain and wanted to do that full time as a nonprofit. So they work with major retailers and fashion brands to go through and audit their supply chain, look at their chemical use. And it's really the toxicity of these chemicals that they're concerned about. Doctors all the time will prescribe a transdermal patch. They will put drugs on your skin and it goes through, into your bloodstream. And yet we put clothes on our skin all the time and we don't think about anything that's in them.
We do now.
Now you'll be thinking about it. You're welcome. But also cleaning up these chemicals makes it better for workers. It makes it better for the water supply. So if, we can push Fashion Forward as the leading brands, everyone will have cleaner, safer clothes. We'll have a more sustainable process for choosing materials and we'll all be healthier.
Sounds great. How long have you been involved with it?
3 years.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
UT's been up and long for that long?
No, UT's just been going for 3 months. So it was exploration last semester and it's a student chapter now. It has about 150 members. So it's cool to see that,
That's awesome.
jump up so fast.
Do you help them with,
No, please.
Do you help, so you mentioned earlier, you help them with the fundraising aspect and connecting them with other people, or?
Correct. Yeah. So as chairman of the board, like my job is to make sure that there's dollars in the door to pursue research, to build the team, to market it and fund the message, because it's a marketplace like anything else, and you don't think of that when you do a nonprofit. But if there's not consumer demand for change, there's no incentive for brands to change. And so that's one side of it is creating awareness, helping consumers educate themselves, providing factual knowledge, not Facebook knowledge, and helping people understand what's going on. So we work with universities and do research collaborations. So that's one side, is consumers need to be aware. And then if consumers are aware and they've got a voice, then what brands care about that? Some brands don't care and some brands really do care. And so playing matchmaker there and helping those that do care but may not be ready move along that spectrum is the work of the nonprofit. So being their Sherpa for sustainability.
That's gonna be very fulfilling. That's got to be a lot of interesting work for you to do.
It's cool to see. I mean, you're a CPG guy, you get it. And for
I
me,
do.
I mean, I'm a tech guy and I love seeing things behind the scenes. I got to tour Precious Metals Mint last weekend. And so
Really?
just seeing how things are made is really fascinating for me. And so learning this fashion industry and how dyes work and how these mills work and how everything is, combed and spooled and shipped and cut is really cool to see.
And
I
how
think
fast fashion's killing everything. Excuse me.
Gavin, you introduced me to the Explain Netflix series. And I just watched a few episodes recently, and the way that you're talking about the mint, I definitely see why you recommended it. It's like, it's cool. It's just learning how things work and breaking things apart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Randall Monroe wrote a book called Thing Explainer, the author of XKCD, the webcomic, and he uses the 1,000 most common words and put it all in a book. So try to imagine like using words you could use with your 5-year-old to explain physics or space travel or, entropy. Pretty challenging thing. And it's a good thought exercise for all of us that are in industries where we use too much jargon. Can we dial it back to a different level?
Our friend Worley wrote a book called Explaining Quantum Physics to Babies. Or I think it's just Quantum Physics for Babies.
Yep.
And it's a board book. It's like the moo moo ba ba la la la, but it's specifically for quantum physics.
Mark, you know what we could do too? We should have a pitch competition where you're pitching to 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds.
We can do that, except we're going to have to get our friend Mike Millard involved because he's got a group called Pitch a Kid, that's what they do.
Oh, really?
It's for 8 and 9-year-olds. And he's been doing it for a couple of years now. Actually, I think 3. When I say last year, I'm saying 2019. I've decided to just skip over 2020. So anytime I say last year, that's what I'm thinking. But Mike's been doing that. I've actually been to a few of those. It's been fantastic. It's been a lot of interesting things because you've got companies that we see every day, people that we know, startups that we talk to and deal with, and then they have to pitch to 10-year-olds. And it's very telling how the words they use and the jargon, like Gavin was saying, and how they explain it, because it's not easy. We're all so wrapped up in our world of acronyms and layers upon layers of technology. But if you have to explain to somebody who's never heard it before, who's coming at it from a beginner's mind, it changes the flavor very quickly.
So how does it work? Does like you would get it like a classroom size of kids, and would they just like vote for which?
In his case, he actually doesn't do a whole classroom. He does 4 or 5 kids on a judging panel. Companies get up and do a pitch just like any other, and the kids pepper them with questions and does that make sense, or what does this mean, and all that. And they're very insightful. It's actually amazing to watch.
If you did one with CPG, like the startups could just bribe them with, you could offer food.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I have a feeling that my Brussels sprouts company wouldn't do as well as my candy company, but yeah.
You should do one in the CPG space.
I think that would actually be really fun. That'd be super interesting.
Because one thing my professor back at U of H by the name Ken Jones would always teach us in our entrepreneurship class, if you're ever going to start a food business, your first customer or the people that you can validate with are kids and then seniors. Kids, because they'll be honest, and so will seniors. But at least with seniors, I guess they have more experience to tell you what you can do better instead of just, hey, you suck.
That's true. Ken Jones is a lion as far as U of H goes, and he built that entrepreneurship program for, I don't know how long he was there. He was there for many years and really building that up, and I think that's fantastic. I'm glad that some of his teaching are reaching all the way to here at Austin. That's great.
Oh, I love him. He's always he can tell you so much with so little words. So, Gavin, have you ever had a chance to meet him?
No, I haven't. I was just thinking of my accounting professor who was like my mentor. He was Mike Jones, but I'd love to meet another Professor Jones.
We've got another Mike Jones in Houston. It's a very different guy, I can promise you.
Yeah. Well, my Mike Jones, he was my accounting professor, and I'm so math phobic. A lot of people are. I went to law school because I was still afraid of math, but he taught, those first 2 courses of accounting you needed for a business degree. And I was afraid it would just be math, and it wasn't. It was about solving a puzzle. And he taught me that. And it was like just a master class in how to teach. And so now for all the cybersecurity people, now you know all my like unlock passwords and security questions. My favorite teacher, Professor Jones.
There you go. One of the lawyers in my office once told me that being a lawyer is like coding with words, which was really interesting. And, obviously he's dealing with startups and technology. He said, law and specifically contracts are just putting code into words.
Well, yeah, tell him anytime he wants to run through smart contracts, I'll put him in front of a terminal.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think there's a big future for that. I really think when you look at contracts, it's this giant, board game, and it's all these if-then scenarios. And the more you can tie that to real world data and then make decisions based off of that data at certain timestamps, that's really what a contract is. So I'm excited for a world where contracts are wired up, given some safeguards and controls, but then just fire off. You can collect royalties and administer audits and all these sort of things based off
hit milestones
and programmatic milestones. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're deep into this. I mean, you're dealing with this every day. How far away are we from general business adoption of a smart contract? Obviously, individual industries are going to be different, but what do you think?
It's a call for entrepreneurs. The tech is there today. It's just someone with enough knowledge from the legal side in that industry, and it is industry specific. Mm-hmm. Shipping contracts are not agricultural contracts, are not celebrity representation contracts. These are still, works of art more than they are works of science. And so there's a big opportunity for folks that can marry subject matter expertise with technical and legal expertise and put them together.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. It
is. Yeah. I think you're right. I don't say this often around my law office, but I like to say that, there hasn't been a single new contract written since the Magna Carta. It's all just boilerplate. And it's just about moving numbers and people around and names around in a Word document. Obviously, that's not true in any way, but there is some semblance of that. But I think essentially coding smart contracts and figuring out outcomes and understanding risk, I think you're right. I think it makes a lot of sense as long as there's obviously the back end to keep everybody honest on the blockchain.
Yeah. Can I make a confession tonight since we're drinking this heavy tea?
Absolutely.
So I went to law school and I hated the legal work. It was really hard. And I worked for a law firm that I loved and admired. They were brilliant transactional lawyers, but this brain doesn't do well with keys, all day long. And that's really like we tracked every, as Marc knows, every fragment of the hour. And Google had just
What inspired you to do law in the first place?
I love the deal making. To me, it's a big board game, and you get to build the rules as you go, and you get to execute the pieces. And to me, that's fascinating. The other fascinating is the voyeur aspect of having your clients and their opponents in the room and seeing the way everybody thinks and the way the negotiations work. Because what they say and what they do are two different things, and what they say and what they mean are different. And it's this fascinating game of chess that you get to see play out. And then what sucked as a lawyer was then I'd take all those notes and I'd go and write a contract, and I didn't get to play the game, but I just had to
write the rules.
Yeah. And so there I was as an intern, and I think, the statute of limitations has expired, so I can confess this. But Google Drive search was a new product from Google, and you downloaded it from your web browser and you installed it on your computer, and it was a way for you to search your computer's files, which was really cool because that really wasn't good in Windows or on any device. But this is still the age of networked desktop computers, and it crawled the whole network of my law firm. So I had full drive access to everything that was in a public folder within my law firm.
I imagine there's some things that really shouldn't be public.
No. No breaches of client confidentiality. Those were all protected.
Right.
But two things were big epiphanies. One was I had access to all the templates and prior contracts of the partners I admired the most. Mm-hmm. And I would gut those out and, leave them in as Mad Libs and use those templates as like my favorent things.
And you still have them today on some hard drive somewhere.
I have some of them. Yeah.
Of course. Everybody does.
Yep. The moment I could, win all those extra gigabytes from Dropbox, I threw them in there.
Sure.
But the other thing I saw was partner compensation. And that was an epiphany to me, which was, they're incentivized way differently than entrepreneurs are. And I love the idea of entrepreneurship being this lottery type function where if you're good and you stay in the game and the market's right, you do really well. And if you're good and the market's bad, you still do okay, or you get another shot at it. Yeah, I had someone argue to me that Bill Gates put him in any other time period with any other tech, and he'd still probably be a billionaire. But he was the biggest billionaire because of, you know, all of these perfect confluences of events with his parents and IBM and what they were doing and the Seattle tech scene that were just a big amplifier effect.
Right. He was the original fake it till you make it. Everybody knows the story that Bill Gates basically sold the operating system to IBM that didn't exist. He had to go and buy it from some little group out of New Mexico, clean it up, and then sell it. But his contract and his riches really were not based on his technology. It was based on the contract itself. He got a royalty for every IBM computer that had, not just had Windows on it, any IBM computer that was actually produced, whether it had his operating system or not. That was part of his deal. And that's what made him his fortune. And then he expanded on it and obviously defended it for many years. And that's where he's at today.
So, I mean, powerful stuff and powerful things to learn. And so for some people, that predictability of the partnership and partner bonuses would have been attractive, and it was great money. I mean, they did great work, but that didn't inspire me from a motivation perspective. So that's when I was like, I got to get out of law. I got to go do something else. I have to figure this out.
So it's
Knowing full well who I work for, I don't see
who
a
do
whole
you
lot
work
of.
for, Mark?
I work for a law firm called Egan Nelson. But the reason I was going to say that is nobody's ever built a statute to a lawyer. They've built statutes to statesmen. They've built statutes to politicians. They've built statutes to warriors who happen to be lawyers, but they weren't there. They weren't cast in bronze because of their knowledge of the law.
Yeah.
The same way.
Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not. I dodged that bullet. I've worked for lawyers more than I've worked for lawyers more than half my life. I spent 8 years working for my dad, who was an attorney. My grandmother was an attorney. 2010 to 2006, I worked for various companies, but I got right back into the breach working for a law firm here in Austin. And so, yeah, I've spent most of my career working for lawyers, but I've never felt the urge.
Which is interesting because when I'm gonna just share my screen real fast. Let's just stalk Mark's LinkedIn for a little bit. So you work for Egan Nelson right now for a law firm.
Yep.
And then let's just
going all the way down to Bulldog Financial, which will be the first one. That was
unlimited scrolling right here.
I guess so. Founder and CEO of Bulldog is true, but that was really working with and for my father, who had a solo practice in Houston. And so I formed a side business my senior year of college to help market for some of the companies he was working for. And so we spent a very long time, it says right there, almost 8 years, duking it out with early stage companies at the very beginning of the tech bubble in 2000, 2001.
But what I'm really interested in is this piece. So did your parents pressure you to be a lawyer and then you're like, nope?
After the fact, undergrad, I could do whatever I wanted. I got a degree in film and television from UT. Like Gavin, I was always interested in the deal. I never knew that I knew I was never going to be in front of a camera with this face. I was always interested in the production of TV and film, but really and truly, I thought I might have the energy to go be an agent in Hollywood. I thought I was ruthless enough. I thought I was mean enough. I thought I was, dastardly enough, and realized it just wasn't for me. But once again, like Gavin, the art of the deal was the most interesting thing for me.
Well, it's interesting because what you do now is you're like the agent of all the people that are running CPG businesses here.
That's a high compliment. I feel that way. I really do. I feel like I'm doing blocking and tackling for a lot of both CPG and tech companies in the startup world. And yeah, I do in fact act like an agent, and I try to actually. There's another nastier word for it, like a fixer, like almost a Ray Donovan, type, where I'm, just basically solving their problems before they become bigger problems.
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea. And I love exploring the concept of, we have this new elevated form of celebrity, and that is the tech entrepreneur, especially in these later stages and high visibility. So I wonder if that is a role. They start doing their movie deals and their
there's got to be something there.
Promotions. board seats.
You know, you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. There's a lot of celebrities that are getting into venture now. And they're not just getting into venture, they're actually investing in companies. I mean, you can name a slew. Like, you start with Gwyneth Paltrow, you know, and Goop. That's her deal. Then you start talking about Ashton Kutcher and all the investments he's made.
Huge investor, yeah.
Very active and very successful investor. Then you've got guys like Carmelo Anthony with his own VC firm. Snoop Dogg has his own VC firm. You've got one of the most interesting ones I just think a lot of people completely overlook, Jessica Alba. Okay, great actress. She's lovely. She's great. She has $1 billion company with Honest Company.
Wow.
And it's real money. And you could say that it's pumped up by her celebrity, but that's just a tool she used to make it work. And now, because it was $1 billion valuation, didn't get sold, there is some talk actually this week of her doing a $1.7 billion IPO, or possibly even a SPAC.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's a real thing.
About Robert Downey Jr. and the new investment funds.
What I'm told is he's starting 2 separate funds, both in the sustainability space. One I think is air and water quality, and the other one is global warming. So if you've got the cash and you've got the clout, you might as well do something good with it.
I mean, what about Ryan Reynolds? How does that play in this?
So here's the story I heard. So Ryan Reynolds, everybody knows him as Deadpool, but he's been doing a lot of movies for a long time. He was introduced to a gin company called Aviator. Is it Aviator?
Aviation.
Aviation. Okay, I was right the first time. You can tell I'm not a gin drinker.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it. So you're putting money in Ryan Reynolds' pocket. I like that. He bought in. He didn't just put money in. He made a deal that he was a celebrity spokesperson and took a big chunk of it. He didn't own the whole thing, but it really was his, and he actually guided it and focused on it. And I think the last number I heard was $900 million sale.
Do you think that's more of a model going forward now that, you know, there aren't as many, you know, giant bookings for the film industry? Do you see more actors moving into this kind of blended commerce model?
Worse. I think it's not just actors. I think it's influencers. I think once you hit a certain threshold, let's say 1 million viewers, 1 million followers on whatever platform you like. I don't care if it's Twitch and you're a gamer, or Instagram if you're a model. If you can build an audience, and this is something I think about all the time, it's just this driving force. Audience curation, building an audience for whatever it is. I don't care if you're a software developer. I don't care if you're, you know, an artist. If you can build an audience and that audience can part with their money somehow for what you're directing them to do, whether it's you selling them something directly or them buying stuff from the ads that you're selling to that audience, I think that's the real model. And what's the easiest way to get a platform like that? Be a celebrity.
Yeah. I think that's intriguing. That's really intriguing.
And I have seen a couple of companies pop up that are essentially agencies, traditional agencies like CAA and a few others, that are getting out of the entertainment business and starting to match individual celebrities with brands from an investment standpoint. But it's fascinating. And look, and it's all coming very quickly. I mean, we're starting to see it now, but I think we're going to see a lot more of it because how many blockbuster movies have you seen in the last year? 0.
Yep.
You can't go to the movies because there's no movies. Or it gets shown on a stream, let's say Wonder Woman 1984, which I was really rooting for. I really wanted to see it. I got HBO Max, and no.
Did you like it?
No. I wish it was better. It was just poorly written, poorly constructed, all that.
I fell asleep.
Yeah.
But my point is that those movies were designed to build up actors and actresses and make them celebrities. But since those ways of showing off those talents are now gone, people are focusing on other things. I mean, how many YouTube channels are out there? How many obscure things that people watch? A perfect example is Clubhouse. I mean, I think Clubhouse is probably one of the most exciting things that's happened in media in the last 10 years.
Oh, that's incredible. That's really incredible. Do you think, I mean, so there's a lot of platforms to master like Clubhouse, and then there's a lot of different channels. Do you think we'll see our first Clubhouse influencers, or do you think it has to transfer from things you already know? Without a doubt. There is no question. How long did it take YouTube stars to become YouTube stars? YouTube stars were traditional stars, regular traditional media that used YouTube as a channel. As a matter of fact, a lot of people forget Justin Bieber was discovered on YouTube. Yeah.
You know, he was just some kid in Canada singing. He was 14, 15 years old. And who saw him? Usher, the singer, said, I like this kid. I want to see him. I want to sign him. And now we're dealing with Justin Bieber for the last 15 years.
Thank you, YouTube. And
Yeah.
thank you, Canada. We get
Exactly.
Ryan Reynolds and Bieber.
Precisely. And
That's
so I think all media transfers. I mean, look, radio transferred to television, transferred to YouTube, you know, cable, really. A lot of people forget. I mean, and YJ, you're way too young to remember this. Gavin and I were certainly in the middle of this. You know, Telecommunications Act in '96 basically allowed different media to be on different channels. It essentially explored the proliferation of the 500 channels on cable. The truth is, and I'd love to hear both of your takes on this. All right, so we've had cable forever. Everybody knows cable sucks. Cable TV is terrible. There's everything on, but nothing you want to watch. So now we have all these streaming networks. I think we're going to see in the very, very near future, probably in the next 8 to 10 months, by the end of 2021, a website that essentially sucks in all of your streaming channels and looks exactly like a cable box from a design perspective. Because how do you keep track of it all?
That's what I saw. Didn't Google make a foray there a month or two ago, where they're trying to aggregate your streaming feeds and then create a browser for it?
I didn't see that. That's amazing.
I'll find it for you.
Please do. I'm very curious. But I think the
you're right.
interfaces are the key.
It happens like that. We get this big disintermediation where everything splits, and then the business model is discovered, and then it becomes aggregated again as things get commoditized. And it's these cosmic explosions that keep happening across every single, print media, broadcast media, web media, and we'll see that in, augmented media very soon.
Oh, clearly. I mean, there's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be Netflix for VR. There's been a few that have tried, but the technology hasn't been there. Something is going to be the X of VR to see VR, AR. I don't think AR, VR is going to make it the way we understand AR, VR today. I think it's really going to be a lot of augmented stuff, but there will be some sort of consolidation of content for that space. It just doesn't exist right now because the demand's not there.
What's interesting, well, one, I don't have cable, and I don't think many of my peers do, because we just stream stuff online. Or if there's something, there's usually like funny YouTube clips or Facebook clips that, can give us that dopamine hit that we want, or relaxation. But the idea of explosions and then diverging back into it, when I think of how businesses are built as well, like you have startups who are, I guess when you first develop your own startup, you have this convergence of all these people working together as a team. And then your startup, as it starts maturing, you start siloing into multiple teams that are specializing in specific fields. But to be able to innovate is having someone who comes in, taking what every single department's doing and bringing it back together to figure out how you can improve the collaboration that every team is working on. So it's just interesting because when I think of like corporations and their problems with growth is really because you have all these very siloed teams who doesn't know necessarily that actually 10 of y'all are doing the same thing for the same people.
Now,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you do want to run 10 things in parallel if you have the resources, because there's a big enough prize there to win. But yeah, information, knowledge management, just managerial tools in general, those are big prizes to win. And so anyone who can crack that and push their own internal innovation faster, I think has a leg up on other people.
But maybe is that the way in which businesses should grow? Is just, hey, you split off, specialize in certain fields, and then you bring it back together at a certain point.
Both from a business perspective and a career perspective, those are things you figure out. And you see this, Marc, in your law firm. There are generalists. You and I are generalists.
Absolutely.
I think we've talked about this before. And it's great to have be an inch deep and a mile wide and just be able to connect dots and make inferences between different things. And then I worked with one attorney who was very smart, and all he did was divide up retirement accounts in divorce. It was one specialty, field of law. And that's all he did all day for 40 years. And, if the economy was bad, he was doing great. If the economy was good, he was doing great. And he was a specialist. And then you try to talk to him about baseball, no clue. You want to talk to him about the latest tax code for division of assets, he knows it. And I think those are just different drivers. And some companies are that way too, where they are very narrowly focused on one thing and doing it really well. And every time they step out over their skis, they get burnt. And so they pull themselves back in and continue to specialize.
Did y'all both knew you were generalists?
I certainly did. Gavin, you went through law school and you had a bunch of other businesses. I don't know if you did. I definitely knew from day one.
No, I definitely tons of denial. I thought I'd do real estate transactions my whole career. I'd read a couple, deal making books and loved that story, and the narrative there. And then I graduated, in the last financial crisis, and the only real estate deals were just, bankruptcy deals or roll up deals. So I went in a different type of property, which was intellectual property, and had as much fun there as I would have in regular property.
How long did it take you to realize you were a generalist and that there is a job doing that?
Well, honestly, there's one part to it too, which is just like sunk cost. And you define your track by how much time you spend on it. If you find yourself developing expertise, it starts to compound. You get access to, earlier research. You get access to great seminars. You're put on a stage to speak or to publish. And that makes you more and more of a specialist. As a generalist, you're able to reuse a template and reuse ideas and put them in other scenarios. And so you're drawn to new scenarios where your thin layer of tools, covers brand new ground. And that's an exhilarating feeling. And so I think there's a dopamine hit for both of those, one being the sage owl, the expert witness, the luminary, that's a specialist benefit. And then being the connector or the visionary or the lightning rod, or the golden boy, all those sort of things are those are the rewards for the generalist. And we all have a mix of those traits, but I think there's different rewards for each one.
Mark, you said from day one.
I knew that I was interested in a lot of different things. I knew that I liked the idea of learning. So learning about learning. I also read very early on that Leonardo da Vinci was quoted as saying innovation is taking two separate things and pushing them together for a different outcome. And that really resonated with me because ultimately what I do, and I don't know if this is the way any of you think about this, ultimately all I do every day is pattern match. I'm looking for various patterns. I'm trying to put them in my own worldview and trying to figure out exactly how they mesh up with what the current situation is. So I just learned this skill a long time ago that you kind of see something, you understand it, you might not know all of it. And Gavin is 100% right. I am very much a mile wide, inch deep. I like a lot of different things, but I know very little about it past the cursory Wikipedia page about just about anything. And the ability to actually put those two concepts together, two ideas, or especially in business. I talk to a lot of younger entrepreneurs, not necessarily students, but people who are just coming out of school or just learning the ropes about being an entrepreneur. And they don't have the history, they don't have the understanding or the layers of how technology or how companies have been built. And so just giving somebody just a little bit of insight, just scratching the surface, gives them some insight to how to actually operate in the world we're in today. Because the truth is that startups are always going to be hard, no matter what company you're in, no matter what country you're in, no matter what situation you're in. Basically bucking the status quo and trying to make it out on your own and living out on your own to do and carve your own path, it's always going to be difficult. But I like to tell people to make your mistakes, just don't make somebody else's mistakes. Learn from the past. And the way to do that is to understand the history of why things are the way they are. Every industry is broken in some way, whether it's legal or whether it's insurance or whether it's healthcare, you name it. They're all broken, but they're broken for a reason. Typically that reason is money, but the way they come about and the way they are today is for a variety of reasons and a lot of decisions over hundreds of years and thousands of people doing it this way. It's not the right way, it's the way, because nobody else has had the ability to disrupt it in a way that makes sense to everybody else. So I like seeing those kinds of things, and I like understanding how to get over that hump when people are just kind of looking out in front of their nose and saying, this is what I have to do. I like to be able to take the perspective of seeing the forest for the trees.
Well, when you were a kid, I mean, knowing that your whole family was full of warriors.
Yep.
I imagine that must have been hard, knowing that you're interested in multiple different things. But your family may have a certain I don't know.
My family was actually really good to me. They said, do your thing. As long as I got good grades and didn't get in too much trouble, it was never, you have to do this or we want you to do that. Now, when I got to my father's office, when I started working for him full time, I got a huge amount of pressure. You should go to law school. You should go to law school almost literally every day. And my counter to him was, and it still is to this day, I've never met a happy lawyer that practices law. And so I met a lot of lawyers. I met a lot of happy people. Very rarely the same person. With the single exception of litigators are very happy because they like to fight and they fight all day. Gavin, is that wrong?
That's right. That's right.
I like to build things. Lawyers like to.
Just no good litigators. Bad litigators aren't happy either.
That's true. That's true. But you know, I know a lot of great lawyers. I mean, really great lawyers, and I know a lot of people who are really smart, and I like them, and they're good people. But and that's their life's calling, and that's fine. It just wasn't mine. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
Did you always have this confidence?
Now, the real question is, do I deserve this confidence? The answer is no. I've always had it. I've never really deserved it.
One thing I'd say about Marc is, I mean, back to the generalist versus specialist, is I think he is a specialist. I think he has a very unique skill set. Just because this is being recorded and broadcasted, like you know, in my own thought experiment, like if you were to clone a brain, like I want a Marc bot on everyone's, email inbox and on everyone's phone. He makes the best introductions. He always can find 2 or 3 people that would expand your worldview that day, just off the top of his head.
That's how we.
I don't know how he does it. I don't have the programming to do it, but it's a true superpower. And so to say that it's just a generalist tool, I think there's some magic there he's hiding from us.
I'm deeply humbled. That's very kind of you. I really do appreciate that. It's a skill. Let me put it this way. I don't have anything else to fall back on. And so I really feel very strongly it's critically important. And I think it's a necessary thing. Putting people together and mashing ideas together is what makes the world go round. And if I can help move that, if I can be a tiny little drop of grease in those wheels, I'm happy to do it.
And that's the magic. And I love people that teach by example. It's one thing for me to tell you what to do or break it down in steps, but if I can show and do it at the same time, that's an extra superpower. The biggest advice we can give as startup mentors is to go talk to customers,
100%.
Go talk to clients, go talk to people that have done it before. And that's what Marc's actually doing, is saying your idea might be great in your head. You might have a great business already, but he gives you this contagious injection of curiosity to go expand that worldview just a little bit wider, which is what everybody needs to be a little bit better. I don't care how high up in your organization you are or how big your company is. There is a stone that's unturned, and there's some, connection to be made there that could turn into a joint venture. It could be a new recruit. It could be a partnership or a customer, or it could just be a dissenting opinion that you push so hard against that, you uncover something yourself. But I think that's the magic of these connections and really stretching yourself a bit more to talk to people.
And I sincerely appreciate it. It's very genuinely kind of you. I just feel like it's my duty. I really look at it as that. I don't think other people do it. I don't think anybody does it. And it's not that I do it well or good or different. I just do it. I just show up. And the fact is that I look at the world almost like there's an overlay, like we talked about AR earlier. There's an overlay. This person should know this person. You guys are going to get along. It's been a long time since I've been wrong about that. It's happened. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes the chemistry just doesn't work. Somebody's in a bad mood, whatever happens. But it's been a long time since I've made a direct connection. You two need to meet each other for whatever reason that it has gone awry. So I'm very proud of that track record.
I mean, honestly, if I was going to build an app to beat LinkedIn, I would put Marc Nathan.
Just use Neuralink like and connect Marc's brain.
Yeah. So Marc's at a computer. There is, I integrate it with my LinkedIn so I can pull up names and photos. And I just show Marc 2 people. And it's just, there's only one button. It's whether they should meet or not. If these 2 people should meet, he clicks it. And if they shouldn't meet, he skips it. And then over the time, he's gone through my couple thousand LinkedIn connections, and he's built me an entire neural network.
Personalized.
But I think everybody should do that. I mean, look, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I was an early beta user. I heard about this thing that this guy, Reid Hoffman, was building. So I got in when I was very young as an early user, and I use it every single day. I'm probably on LinkedIn 20 times a day. And because I can't remember everybody, I certainly try, but it's a great tool if you know how to use it. It's a terrible social network. I mean, it's beyond bad. It's not searchable. Things are hard. I think Microsoft has ruined it. I'm actually still mad that Salesforce didn't end up buying it, because that's who it really should belong to.
Yeah.
But that's me. But it's one of those tools that I'm on every single day, because that, this is a very cliche and very boring thing. We should all get mugs that say this, but your network is your net worth. I believe that. And so I've tried very hard to make LinkedIn work for me. I just think unfortunately, it's just starting to fray at the seams. It's just not there. And I think we need a new system. I don't know what that new system looks like. I've thought about it.
Facebook a good professional?
Facebook is a great tool if you really want to get angry about the stupid people in your life. If you really want to see the dumbest possible thing somebody could post, and it's not the inspirational quotes, it's not the pictures of your dog or your baby. I mean, those are great. It's the questions that they should have Googled before they put it on Facebook. It's like the old Mark Twain saying, and I really believe this, it's better to the world to think you're dumb and silent than to open your mouth and prove them right. But I think Facebook has devolved, and I know we all know, we all saw the social network, and we all understand like what is going on. It's designed to elicit emotion, and unfortunately, that emotion is anger or just rage. So,
are you guys familiar with the concept of lemon markets?
No, tell us about it.
So, lemon coming from a car lot. So, you and I started used car lot. We have cash in hand. We buy up all the cars we can get our hands on. So all the available cars in your neighborhood in Austin that we can buy, that someone will take cash for, we buy, right? Then YJ walks on the lot tomorrow and he picks out the best deal, the coolest car, the newest car with all the upgrades at the best price. And he drives it off the lot. And we take that cash home and we pocket it and we feel pretty good. We sold our first car. And then YJ's friends come the next day and buy the next 3 best cars on the lot. And then a couple more people come and we've now sold 2 dozen cars on the lot. Well, what cars are left on the lot, that last dozen? Are they the newest cars?
The lemons.
Cars? They're the lemons. And so over time, every marketplace, and if you think of Facebook as a marketplace of ideas, these devolve into lemon markets. You see it in dating sites, you see it in social networks, you see it in professional organizations sometimes, where all of the high value members have left the platform because they found what they're looking for, they've evolved their network, or they're tired of being around lemons.
I've never heard it spoken that way. I love that. That is a great metaphor. I've never heard of it that way, but that's 100% right. Are either of you using anything? Are you using Lunch Club? Do you know what lunchclub.ai is? Actually, Gavin,
I signed up really early on. I didn't find a great connection there, but I see the progress and I think it's a great concept. And I also think it just powers our excitement for new platforms in general, is because they are specialized and they are early adopters, and there is enthusiasm and excitement in making new connections in a new context. And Facebook as a platform is old right now.
Precisely. And that is exactly what I mean. I saw Lunch Club. I was invited to Lunch Club earlier this summer. Lunch Club is essentially a tool. You register, you get on, and it matches you with 2 or 3 individuals that are already on the platform, and you have a half-hour meeting with them set up through Google Hangouts or something like that. So I've been doing quite a few of them and I really like it. I haven't found a bad one yet, but I tell everybody, I think that if you want to do something like Lunch Club, do it now, because in 6 months, the marketer is going to get a hold of it. It's going to become, you're going to see workshops for how to market your product on Lunch Club, and it's going to devolve. It's going to get to the lemon problem very quickly.
Yeah.
So, and Twitter, this happened to Twitter. I saw it, I lived it. I was one of the very first people on Twitter in Houston. And the reason I know I was number 2 and not number 1 is because my very good friend, Kelsey Ruger, told me to get on this thing called Twitter back in 2007. And I did, and we were the only 2, and then all of a sudden it exploded. And then we got to South by Southwest that year and it really exploded. And I still remember meeting people and knowing people and being very intimate with people on Twitter. Now I barely go to it. I can't look at it. The marketers have gotten a hold of it. It's now a brand channel. It's just garbage, but it's where everybody is, just like you were asking earlier about Facebook. That's where everybody is. So you still go there, but it's like Yogi Berra said, nobody goes there. This place is too crowded. Nobody comes here anymore. There's nobody's on there. It's just not there.
So how I think that's an interesting dichotomy. Like you, as a business, you're trying to grow the user base, and that's how you generate profitability by having more users, more data, more, more engagement between people. But as early adopters that are utilizing these platforms, how can you create a community just for those people and just make sure your lot always has the best cars? Is that even possible?
Not long term.
Long term, you see it through acquisition. I mean, you saw Facebook acquire Instagram and acquire WhatsApp and do a lot of experiments to try and evolve with their audience and internationalize and plan for the future. So you could do it by continuing to buy the next thing. I mean, it's getting me thinking about, could you mint cohorts, segment your users and then deprecate your platform on purpose, make it an exploding network that dies after 3 years as a way to drive people to adopt something new off your platform.
Almost the opposite of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the way Reddit's doing it, not maybe by design, but they've federated their model where each of these subreddits are their own communities with their own in-jokes and moderation. And then if they don't like them or they're not useful to the platform, Reddit is now killing them, either overtly or inadvertently. And yet Reddit as an engine keeps going because there's new growth and new niche topics and new communities that use them as a platform. And so they don't die individually. They can die by 1,000 cuts. You can deplatform everybody if you do system-wide changes, but they're able to have control over subgroups of their communities without killing the entire ad model.
What an interesting idea. No, I love the idea of having a intentional network, but for a short period of time. Because here's the thing, and this is something that I've learned as I've gotten older, you change. Your needs change, your ability to network changes. The platform doesn't have to change, but what you care about is different. That's why I think, and I registered on Clubhouse, but I've never actually gone on Clubhouse because I'm an Android user. I don't have an iPhone.
Me too.
And I keep hearing about it. I'm sure it's great.
Tons of invites. Yeah.
Yeah, I get invites once a day. I mean, and I see a lot of topics. There's actually one on the Houston startup scene, and I can't participate. First of all, I'd rather be here with you, obviously. But secondly, I can't participate, and that obviously bothers me a little bit. But the point is that I really like that idea of having intentional networks that are time specific.
Well, what was Woodstock?
Exactly.
What was Lollapalooza? What was South by Southwest 2008?
Whatever it was, yeah.
I was there when Meerkat exploded. I was there. I was there. Those moments in time, can you encapsulate those around an event or around a group of people and realize that you might repeat it in another sequence, but it's not, something that lasts forever.
It'll never be the same.
Yeah. I mean, I admire these massive event planners. They live and die by the sword. They're as good as their last concert. There is some nostalgia and there is something to that, but they're minting, they're publishing, each new event, and they have to constantly reinvent themselves. Whereas these social networks have this lock-in because they're sitting on real estate, in your hand, and they don't have the pressure to continue to innovate. And so by nature, they turn sour.
That's an extraordinarily interesting point. I really want to explore that. That makes a lot of sense to essentially have an intention and then a time date stamp. I mean, basically an expiration date, because if you expire it, you know that it's not going to last forever and you make the most of it. It's like we're the most productive. When's the most productive you can possibly be? Well, I'll tell you, it's when the door is closing to the airport or to the airplane. You're typing, you're doing, that is the single most productive element of your life because it's finite. It's going to stop.
There was this brilliant app a couple of years ago that came out that would match users in the chat environment when they were under 5% of their battery.
Oh, that's funny. That's great. I like that.
And as an art piece, it was beautiful, but in that same vein, like it's called Die With Me or something. So you
I love it. Does it still exist?
No, it was an idea.
5 to 15 minutes. You don't know because you don't know everyone's battery life. And then it just disconnects and you don't ever find that user again.
I love that. It's like chat roulette, but from an iPhone perspective. That's very cool.
And chat roulette had some magic. I thought it was really cool when it came out. I was actually at a hackathon the weekend it came out.
Really?
We stole the idea and we mocked up, we won this startup weekend, my brother and I. We mocked up chat roulette in a web browser. So it was a peer-to-peer video chat that would match you with another person. You could talk about any topic. We introduced a third element, which is, trying to run Flash and 2 video screens in one browser in 2009 it's pretty hard to do, but you could play a game in the middle. So you could play chess against somebody,
Clever.
play battle tanks or something. And then we called it iClash and won our little Portland startup weekend doing it.
What a great idea.
It was so fun. And just that serendipity of, meeting a stranger and having something to do together. That was the powerful thing. And when I think of like festivals and conferences and other events, that's what you get in that type of network is I know if I go to CES, I'm going to see these certain people for this certain amount of time, and my outcome will be a certain thing. I know if I go to this club or this concert, or this trade show, that I will meet a certain group of people for a certain duration with a certain expected outcome. And my happiness is whether those elements are fulfilled or not. Did I go to the concert? Did I get that photo I really wanted to have? Did I have that awesome date I was looking for? Then yes, I'll be there for the next one. If I go to CES and I book those 40 meetings I'm trying to book in 3 days and 5 out of 40 go really well, awesome. I'm addicted. I'll be there next year. And so that's, to me, like that would be the ballsy thing, would be a developer who could say, I'm going to create a magical experience for these group, for a group of people. It's a time limited thing, but if you got the outcome you thought you'd have, I'll be back with my next iteration.
What a great, I really like that.
I think that's kind of where, how the Boring Company, where just, hey, limited time, these are the amount of flamethrowers that we're selling. Hey, these are tequila that we're selling. And so all these early adopters get rewarded because they got into it and there was a limited time. And after that, there was no more product that you could buy. So you're creating these businesses where you're literally limiting the growth, but you're rewarding all these early adopters, but you're keeping the culture and the brand. And that's, I think, kind of going back to that, you're creating the framework, but there's limited products for each thing that the framework is generating, just so that you create this community of, I guess, highly valuable. Yeah.
But based on artificial scarcity. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, the companies that really get in trouble are they call it artificial, or they make it scarce, but it's not scarce. They keep pumping the market.
I don't believe that, Mark. I think it is scarce, and I think we're just using the wrong metrics.
Oh no, your concept is 100% right. I totally agree with you. And the event or the feeling you get from that event is absolutely scarce. I'm talking about companies that build in artificial scarcity that isn't artificial. I'm thinking about like Beanie Babies or Roblox or whatever that might be. The point that I'm trying to make is that experience, that unique moment in time, that snapshot, that connection, that meeting, that can never be replicated at that moment in time. And I think that's what's so interesting about your concept. I really like it.
We live in an attention economy, and to me, that's what I'm referring to, is our attention to a digital good, even if it's not scarce, is limited. Even if I have all the streaming options presented in a cable box format where I go through and scroll them, that time still competes with my phone. That time still competes with my gaming system or any other substitution. And that's why I think this like model of serendipity and creating magical brand new platforms is tapping a resource we're not tracking yet, which is that creative attention. I might spend mindless time on Facebook, but I spend wondrous time on a new platform like Clubhouse.
Sure.
You have my full attention. You don't have my half attention. You don't have to send me push notifications. I'm pinging it every day just to see if there's something new popping up. And so if you think of highest and best use of your digital property, what are those things that actually captivate you? Things that actually draw you in. Because in a traditional business model, that's where you're going to see the best e-commerce. That's where you're going to see the best engagement. That's where you're going to see your power users, is people creating on those platforms, engaging on those platforms, and honestly being fascinated by them.
Sure. I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're 100% right. Now, I can think of platforms that that actually was the intention. Like perfect for instance, and once again, YJ, I hate to do this to you, you're too young for this, but Second Life was a 3D system. Basically, it was a approximation of a 3D world. You had the ability to buy real estate, digital real estate, and translate the monetary unit of Second Life. I think they're not called simoleons, that's from Sims. They were called, it was actually a name of a currency.
Yeah, it was like E-bucks or something. I can't remember.
Something like that. And it was just one of those Web 1.0 ideas that makes a lot of sense, but way too early. Hardware wasn't there, bandwidth wasn't there, people weren't there. But people, were on the front cover of magazines for actually able to sell like skins. As we know the word skins now, they used to be called, I think, outfits or primes or whatever they were called. But people were translating the in-game currency to real world currency, and some lady built this huge house and sold it for $1 million. And made her whole year based on this 3D thing. And that was fascinating, to use your term, at the beginning of the whole digital revolution. But now that's very common. And we've got 8-year-olds building, Minecraft tools every day,
which are incredible. They're magic. I just remember, what was it, 2 years ago when they had that Travis Scott concert in Fortnite? Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, just what an epic event that was, and what a crossover that was, and whatever you think about that platform. Like at that point in time, my son wanted V-Bucks more than he wanted cash. Would have just been a friction point to getting it into V-Bucks. Mm-hmm. That was the coin, of his world.
I had this conversation today, about 4 hours ago, with my 10-year-old daughter who needed more money on Roblox. She needed Roblox because there was a new update coming out today, and she wanted to get whatever the animal was, the pet that she needed. Mm-hmm. So it's 100% true. I mean, I find it fascinating that these companies have been able to monetize that feeling. I think it's really interesting to watch. And we're going to see more and more of these. I mean,
I want to see how much of a household budget goes to digital goods per year and track that over time.
Well, in the middle of COVID, what else can they spend their money on? So I imagine it's spiked, and I think it's going to stay very high.
Yeah.
Because frankly, it's really the only way for a lot of these kids, especially the ones that aren't going back to school, to even connect with their friends at all. I mean, that's a very big deal. And I don't think people really recognize that. There's going to be lots and lots of history books that are going to be written about the time during COVID, about how these relationships change and everything else. There was an article that came out a few days ago about how there are certain types of friendships that are eliminated now. They just don't exist because we're isolated. But I think we're going to see a lot of that. And I think that there's going to be lots and lots of tools and things that rise up in the near future that capitalize on that as well.
I dig it.
But I think, I'm just going to be in violent agreement with you, Gavin. I think the idea of having an intentional time-limited community where you have to show up, you have to be there, like Woodstock. If you're not there, you're not there. You didn't participate.
A huge cultural touchstone. That something was referenced by a whole generation for life. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be the scale of the impact. And people do that with early mover advantage, but you steal some of the magic whenever everything else is opened back up.
Mm-hmm. And that's why there's wait lists and betas on almost every software. They want to put that digital velvet rope up so that you feel empowered if you're on it. And
no, I'm addicted to that stuff. Product Hunt is one of my must scroll every day with websites. If you haven't seen it before.
That's why we're friends, because I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. Hacker News and Product Hunt are like my default tabs.
I'll tell you my secret, and this is very easy. There's a tool that I use. I'm on it. It's my homepage. I use it every day. It's called Popurls, Popurls. And Popurls is a layout. It's nothing more than a template layout of a bunch of different websites. Easy ones. Hacker News, obviously, Reddit, Dig, Wired, Slashdot. I remember refreshing Slashdot every 5 minutes. Yeah. Those days are long gone. So basically it lays it out in these blocks. So I get to see all the top 10 headlines, all refreshed instantly. So that's part of my secret. And it's just a tool that I use to see everything.
I love it. Well, the practice I want to end is the companies that put up that velvet rope for you. You sign up for the beta, and then they email you 3 weeks, 6 months, who knows afterwards, and said, you're now in. And you click on it and you're like,
who cares?
I've never been here. What is this?
Yeah.
Because they've renamed, rebranded, relaunched since then, and they don't like resell me on it before you make me click your link.
Mhm.
I've completely forgotten about you.
Yeah. I also think there's probably either a business or an AI tool set that will go in through all my emails, through my thousands of emails and all of my different links and everything else, and just tell me what I've clicked on and what I've actually accessed. Because there are companies and people. I met a guy today. Literally, we scheduled a meeting, we talked, and we're talking, and I think it's a great deal, and actually it's going to be a great client for my firm, and I'm really excited about it. He had to remind me that we met 9 months ago, and I've never been more. I mean, I think I played it off pretty well, but that was, to me, that is the single scariest thing in the world, for me to actually know somebody, connect with them, have a connection with them, and then completely lose it because I haven't spoken, thought, or talked about that person in months.
Yeah.
That's my personal hell.
No,
That
if
happens to
anyone
me a
ever
lot.
told me that Marc Nathan forgot somebody, one, I wouldn't believe them, and two, I'd forgive you, because the number of people you meet and the number of connections you make is like.
I mean, that's the worst. To me, it's the worst possible thing.
No, that's the helpful thing about LinkedIn, again, is like flashcards for humans.
Yeah.
Being able to see the date at which you connected with someone on LinkedIn, at least, as a cue for that.
That
But
could
I'm
be
with
the,
you. I
the
would love
next
that,
AR
Mark.
thing too. Like Nathan's glasses right now is probably projecting all our faces and our stats.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, that's the easy part. But the next level is, I see you with my glasses, I see you with my glasses, and then it gives me the rank number. This is a 40% match or 80% match or whatever
There we
else it
go.
is.
Yep.
That's what I want
Yeah.
in real time.
So on that theme, I even have a name for this company now. So I love the concept of flow states.
I'll build this site
Yeah.
for you right now.
Flow is when you are in the moment.
Yep.
And you're doing your best work, and time just either freezes or flies by.
Mm-hmm.
Good litigators smile because they're in flow when they're in the courtroom.
Right.
To hit flow, most people have to be about 7%, like within 7% of their maxed effort. So it's really pushing you.
Mm-hmm.
But the term I heard the other day is a two-person flow. So two people meeting, and it's that moment in Hamilton they sing about when they connect, but they call it rapport. And I love that. So if two people in flow jamming, writing a song together, meeting each other, brainstorming a startup, having a great date, that's rapport. And
Walking 50 laps around HEB.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
But rapport is a great term for it. There was a startup that I loved. I thought it was the greatest startup in the entire world. It was a plugin for Gmail that would automatically go and find, if you had a Gmail account, it would automatically go and find all the social media that person was on with that particular email address.
Yeah.
So you could see their LinkedIn, their Facebook, their Twitter, or Instagram, whatever it might be. At the time, actually, one of the biggest ones was Clout, if you remember that one.
Yep.
And so you could see their Clout score. So Rapport was a great company until LinkedIn bought it and completely deprecated it. But it was called Rapport.
Oh, cool.
And there was another company that did the exact same thing for your Outlook email. It was called Zombie. It was inbox spelled backwards.
Those guys are out of Seattle. I met some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Didn't they sell to someone?
Microsoft,
yeah.
Totally deprecated. And now we don't see even a whiff of those features, 15 years later, it feels like.
Yep. No, that was
useful
to have that sidebar. Because it's like putting a CRM inside of your Gmail.
Precisely.
Or inside of Outlook, which had barely any extensions. I remember installing Zobni, and it was like, there was like 5 other options to, there was nothing else you could put in.
I tried them all, but that was a great concept because what it did was I get to see who's doing what and how they're connected and all the information that you get out of LinkedIn. When did you connect? What was the date? It helped you bring some context to the email. It was a great idea. And then it also helped you schedule meetings, which is still, and I'm going to ask both of you. I've been thinking about this a lot. How do you feel about Calendly? Do you care? Do you think about it? Does it matter?
I do. I think about it daily.
I'm going to tell you what I think. I am super, super excited for the guy who founded it in Atlanta. He's an African-American founder. He just made a ton of money with it. He just raised a ton of money last week. I am super excited for him as an individual and as a company. I find Calendly rude. I've decided that's the word I'm using. It's rude. It's not appropriate. It doesn't it breaks the social contract. Because if I want a meeting with Mr. Famous Gavin Gillas and I then send him my calendar, how dare I?
Yeah.
I asked you. It's like asking somebody for lunch and having them pay. I just find the whole social part of it rude. The technology's fine. The business is fine. But how people use it is terrible.
So again, like this keeps me up at night, and I don't know why.
I know why, because this is the kind of stuff you think about. That's
it is
why.
rude. I mean, Mixmax did it a long time ago. There's been a lot of these, and they are off-putting, especially the first couple of times you set them up. At the same time, I have 15 calls I need to set up before I go home tonight. And I'm really, because I do it manually, and I'm really bad at it. And it takes a lot of mental friction, like to translate time zones in my head, to weigh my personal and home calendars, and I've got as much as I can on my calendar. So the calendaring stuff is a big part of my week, and it is hard to do.
So maybe for the
let
people
me tell you,
that you just have professional relationships with, and for social ones, is like, hey, Mark, Gavin, are you interested in doing something tonight?
What's the difference? There is no daylight between my personal relationship with Gavin and my professional relationship, or my personal relationship with you and my. There's no difference to me. I don't have different context for that. If you're a friend, you're a friend. Period. The end.
Yeah.
But and I'm like you, and I have less. I'm actually less busy than you are. You're the busiest guy I know, and I do it all by hand. Absolutely true. No, Gavin's a very busy guy. He's got a lot of juggling. But my point is that I do them all personally too. I don't have a VA or a secretary or all that. Got 3 different calendars. I've got family calendar. I've got 3 business calendars. I've got all that. But it wouldn't occur to me. I got on Calendly when it was first in beta. I thought it was a great idea. Yep. I stopped using it about 3 days later because somebody said, well, what's this? You asked me for a meeting. That was years ago. And I get them all the time now. I don't mind if somebody puts a Calendly link in their email signature. That's perfectly fine. But if somebody says, hey, send me a...
Let's meet. Here's my Calendly.
Yeah, I mean...
So
I'm very curious about your thoughts on this.
This is a hack from Henry, my co-founder at YGC. Yep. We have an executive council. We work with a lot of VIPs, that wonderfully busy, wonderfully inaccessible people that donate their time to help out young startups. And so trying to be really cautious of their calendars and their time. And what Henry did that I thought was so graceful and so smart is he suggests some time and offers to set the meeting, includes a Calendly little snippet below, and says, if you'd like to forward this to your assistant to schedule on my calendar, it's available. And most people click and they schedule and they're fine with that, but just that nudge of saying, you likely have an assistant, I don't. So I'm doing all the assistant work I would do, or my team would do up front for you. But if you want to forward this on to someone else and have them set it, that works great. So I thought that was gracious.
That's a great hack. And that Henry's a smart guy. I think that's a really good way to basically say, you're not putting the burden on the person individually. You're explaining you understand the situation. I think that's great. Another tool that I used to love the idea of, but it never really worked exactly right, was X.AI.
I wanted that to work. That was the next thing I thought of when you said alternative tools.
Of course, it was a brilliant idea. So YJ, if you know what we're talking about, X.AI came out about 5-6 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 4 years ago. Basically, internet years are like dog years. So whenever I say a couple of years ago, it might as well be 10 years. It doesn't matter. The fact is, this was a tool that basically used machine learning and some algorithms to essentially make what amounted to a fake assistant. And it was called, and it was a name. It was Amy. A woman's name, Amy. But it stood for something.
I think it was just the initials were AI. It was like Amy
Ingram.
Yeah.
Amy Ingram. But I thought it was like anagram or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever it was this great idea. So you're basically, it's essentially an email chat bot trying to figure out contextually what times you're available.
And you would give it calendar access. So it would be pulling from your calendar and turning that into text versus putting up a calendar widget, which I thought that was clever. And really, honestly, there wasn't a ton of AI. It was fairly templated. And I'm sure they had team members reviewing emails. So I have one more, Mark, that I want you to try out and let me know if it works.
Dying to hear it. Go ahead.
I'm experimenting with it right now. It's called SavvyCal.
Ooh, I like it already.
SAVYCAL. And that's particularly the pain point they're trying to tackle, which is sending someone else your calendar is rude. And so if I'll send you a SavvyCal after this, and
I'm looking at it now.
The idea is that I can log in through my Gmail or other OAuth, and it puts my calendar up instead.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
And then I can just match calendars.
I just signed up. I'm doing it right now while we're talking.
And the coolest piece of email marketing that I got from them last week was, if you're still in a Calendly contract, we will buy out your contract if you move over.
Bold move. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
So I thought it was a little ruthless, but you know, to be that confident in your product, even if no one takes you up on it, it's a pretty powerful thing.
I'm going to have to do all the, like, I just signed up and I'm onboarding now, but it's going to take me another 30 minutes to onboard. So I'm going to stop doing this. This is a great idea. I love it. Clever.
So let's figure it out. You didn't know you get all the tool tips tonight, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we talk about now.
But it's good to be tactical. Yeah.
We should do this more.
The next one, and I'm not asking for tech support here. I'm just asking what your opinion is. I need a tool that will consolidate all of my notifications. I have one that I'm thinking about. Every notification, text message, Slack channels, my email, any alerts that I get from, not necessarily Google alerts, but you know, my Twitter feed, all that. I need all in one dashboard. Any ideas?
Yeah, turn off your notifications.
Of course, but that's, yes.
Mute your phone.
Yeah.
To assistant or your kid.
Yuck.
But I just need it all. I just need to see just a general scroll or a list of all of my notifications.
You're on Android?
Yeah.
And would you want it on your desktop, or you want it on your...
I want to say I want a Windows. So
what notifications are important to you?
Well, my text notifications, and I use Phone Companion, which is an Android app or a Windows app for my Android. So I see those on my desktop. There's one called Get Friends, and I'm playing with it, FRANZ, and you basically plug in all of your different tools and it sucks them into one list, but it's a little expensive and it doesn't always work because it's a little wonky. It's open source product. It's really cool, but it's not exactly what I want. I just need to either stop doing notifications, which is obviously the smart move.
All right,
really,
that was flippant. But what I use today, honestly, is Chrome. Like I use the different tab bars.
Okay.
I always have Slack open, and I always have Signal open, and I've got the Google Hangouts extension in my Gmail. I get the text messages in my Gmail. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I'm just in Chrome. I don't like notifications. I want to squash them, but I get it.
Oh no, I don't mind notifications at all as long as I can take action on. What I really want is a scrolling feed. I want like a ticker.
You want a stock ticker? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've played around with some roll your own RSS feeds, but they're just too complicated. It can't be done. It can't be done appropriately. I just think there's some UI and UX innovations that need to be done.
All right, I'll find something for you.
I know you will. I know you will. I'm not worried about you. I think you will.
Have you ever used this tool called Rainmeter? It's
yes, actually I have, and Rainmeter is a very cool idea, but it also there's a lot of heavy lifting to configure it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's an overlay tool, it's an overlay display tool, and it's really used for gamers to, you know, see their temperature and their clock speed and their FPS and all that, but you can plug something in. So that's a very good idea, and they've got all kinds of cool templates, and it makes your desktop
a large learning curve to customize it.
Yeah, it takes a lot, and I have tried it, so thank you. But it's been several versions back since I played with it. And I set it up on a USB key so that it could be portable. I could walk around with it. So I made it the portable version of it, and so I could plug it into my laptop or this desktop and all that. So I have all of my tools in one place with the overlay. But once again, it was just too much.
Yeah,
I'm not a programmer.
Yeah, I have one more tool for you that might do it. I use it. I just don't use it that way. It's called Workona.
Never heard of it.
So I use it for tab management in Chrome.
Oh, did you know? Let me show you something real quick, because I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with it. Did you know you could group your tabs
natively?
Yeah. So.
Oh, this is cool, Gavin. I get this.
So it's got that bar on the left side that you can use for the apps, and then you can use the tab grouping that YJ's talking about.
Oh, clever. Okay. All right. I'll be downloading this too. Add to Chrome. My tab management tool is very simple. I have one called OneTab. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but OneTab basically sweeps all of your tabs, takes everything, and you can have 30, 40. I've had up to 80 tabs at once. And it sweeps them all into a single HTML page that's persistent. So it's almost like bookmarks, but it's not. You can just do it every time. I'm having some hardware problems, so I have to do OneTab probably 2 or 3 times a day. But I do OneTab at least 3 times a week and use that to do my newsletters.
Oh, that's cool. I always wondered about your newsletter tech. That's really interesting.
I have a whole website about it. I built,
Okay.
I wrote a whole long post about how to do a newsletter.
Send me that post at some point, or I'll Google it. I'll find it. But yeah,
it's easy. I'll find it.
I'll post it put it in a blog post.
Yeah.
The way I use Workona is to, like, since it's a startup studio and I have a couple other projects like the nonprofit
a couple.
and giving.
He's so humble. I have a couple. He's got probably a dozen other projects.
It's great to be in these different kind of production environments. Sorry about that, guys. So I set it up as separate tabs or separate work groups. And that way, I'm living in, YGC world. And all those tabs are open, every email account, my calendar, all that's up and running.
This is great.
And then I can just clear it all out and move over to a client's project or home stuff or, finances.
Sure.
And
I love it. I get it.
And most people, okay, I live in Chrome. So it's like all my extensions are persistent. My workspace is persistent, and yet I can flip out all the content.
Smart. Okay, I get this.
Helpful.
How do you spell it?
Workona. Here. WORKONA.com. Just downloaded it. Love it. I knew this was going to be a good call.
So I have the next tech question, which is, and this might be a regular T segment, is moving things from LinkedIn to, I hate the messaging on LinkedIn. So moving things from LinkedIn over to email. Like, have you done anything good with messaging inside of LinkedIn or transferring it out of LinkedIn? I'm now buying basically CRM scrapers that scrape my own contacts, not leads, but my own personal connections, just to pull stuff out of the horrible chat environment and move it to email.
As soon as somebody sends me a message, not if it's a fake message, thanks for connecting, do you want to set a demo? I ignore all those. I don't even respond. I just ignore them. What I do is I say, let's move this to email and give my email address as soon as I can, because messaging inside of LinkedIn's horrible.
Yeah, that's great.
I do that I did that today. I did that twice today, actually. I said, hey, this is great. Please don't message me. I don't say don't message me on LinkedIn. I said, let's move this to email, because email is the lingua franca of the internet. It is the most standard internet. Everybody has an email address. Most people have a Gmail address, so they know how to deal with that. But I am adamant about getting out of LinkedIn Messenger as soon as possible. And to that same effect, I do that often with Facebook as well. I try to get work emails off of Facebook as soon as I can.
That's so just move venues. I like that. And then
what about the instant messaging aspect? I mean,
well, hold on. When you said, what do I do? YJ, real quick, you had a good one.
So the instant messaging aspect of it is like, hey, it's not long enough for it to be email.
Right. Well, I keep that on there. Like I normally don't move those. If it's longer than 2 sentences, an instant message, I try to move it to email as fast as possible. Gavin, you asked me a question. How do I keep up?
So you move it to email, and then how are you tracking those contacts? Because you're losing the context of LinkedIn. The order of what's coming in, the faces and bios attached. I sometimes when I get to email, I then, because I don't have that great Zobney extension, I lose some of the context.
I don't think that's my major concern. I don't know. I think it's just up to me to remember they came from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, listen, where do we connect or how that, but I don't think that's my major issue. I just need to keep all in one place. That's why when I say notifications, when I say I need a single app, it's not notifications that I care about. It's messages from other platforms.
Different channels.
Right. I want.
You take a multi-channel approach to your outreach, to your network, and then you try to consolidate it into a workflow.
That could be the next software platform. Just, hey, this is a one Skype messenger or different groups from like
Whatever it is.
LinkedIn, Lunch Club, whatever.
Yeah. And so to me, and there's certain things that I get a ton of emails every single day, just like we all do. But I subscribe to probably 200 or 300 newsletters, and I maybe read 10 of them a day, or I want a podcast or whatever it is. I am completely overwhelmed with all the stuff that I'm getting in and stuff that gets lost. The one thing I hate is an email that gets lost, like an actual email to me that I'm to respond to. If I'm on the phone for 2 or 3 hours and don't check my email, it's easy to have 50, 60, 100 emails, and it gets buried.
Mm-hmm.
So I need a way to get those up to the front, or, my family will send me a text and I don't see it. Like it's buried in 7 or 8 or 10 other texts. And believe me, there's hell to pay if I don't respond. Forget my wife's lovely. She's great. But if I don't respond to one of my daughter's email or texts, it is just murder, bloody murder. I mean, you understand.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Well,
So-
I don't want you to get in trouble, Gavin. And we've been going on this for a little bit. So I do want to end it on, I guess, first you, Gavin. Why should people reach out to you? What types of people do you want reaching out to you?
I'm dying to hear this too.
Yeah.
Dangerous. I'm worried they'll reach out and I won't answer their email in time. This is asking for trouble. We talked about, Marc being a super connector. And one of the cool things about, meeting generalists and meeting specialists is it's so nice to have the person in that thing. So I love people that have, they spend their whole day thinking about lasers, or they spend their whole day, working on hydroponic, tool sets.
Carbon
or developing in Rust. So to me, having this expert network, those are the types of people I love to be introduced to and love to meet. Someone who's super deep in something. One, because I admire it, because I don't have it. And two, because, as that serendipity engine rolls along, you never know what tool you need. Sometimes it's, I wish I really knew someone that knew everything about numismatics. And so Friday, I get to have dinner with a guy that is one of the pioneers of numismatics. He's graded over 1 million coins. And
I mean, that is, to me, that's super cool. Like, I get that. I think that's interesting. I'm dying to know why it is important to you to know a guy who's a coin expert.
I might be doing a project with coins at some point in the future.
Interesting.
And so
how cool.
So being able to tap into that and apply it to, 2 other things, that's usually the surface area for a new business, is mashing up a couple things where you don't have to reinvent it. And I don't want to be an expert in anything because I'll never get there. So if I can pull 2 or 3 experts together and then have enough connective tissue between that and momentum, then that's a business. It's honestly a business. If I could break down what we do for diesel technicians, it's the exact same tech platform for nurses. Exact same code, exact same workflow. It's just better experts and better industries.
It's interesting because one of the people I could talk to recently had a friend who worked at a beer distillery. I don't know what you call those.
Brewery, sure.
Brewery, of course.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Not even drinking. But understanding how beer is made, realizing that there was waste material that was just being thrown away, and figuring out how to take that into making dog treats because they enjoy dogs.
Clever. Yeah, there was a startup here in town that did something similar.
It's probably the same person we're talking about, Marc. Maybe.
Oh, cool.
When I lived in South America, they would take the mash from breweries, carbonate it and add sugar to it and sell it as an alternative to root beer. And it was the #1 soft drink. So if you go into any Latin American grocery store, you'll see Malta, which is malt. And it's basically malt syrup, carbonated. And it's this black, syrupy, tastes exactly like liquefied, sugary Raisin Bran. But it's just a byproduct of the fermentation process that they make semi-safe for kids. And after a while, you acquire a taste for it. It's great.
You were in Australia, you've eaten Vegemite.
Yes.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Huh.
So to answer your question, why did
Yeah.
people I love to meet, I always love to coach entrepreneurs and hear what they're doing. It just fills my tank, makes me really excited. And like Marc was saying earlier, if I can help them, waste a day by asking bad questions and getting really good feedback versus, waste a year of their life, not asking those questions, that's part of the community service that we all do. But people I love to work with are, people that have 9 out of the 10 boxes checked and they're looking for that 10th thing. If only I knew how to, add a blockchain to something. If only I knew how to, add an electronical component to this, or, make this self-balancing, because filling in the rest of those boxes and, unlocking a business, that's really exciting for me. The companies I work with are typically Fortune 500. They are masters in their field, well-regarded brands, and yet innovation somehow became hard. And we talked about that a bit with, big companies that you guys know. It becomes hard sometimes. And sometimes it's just calcification. And other times it's truly, there's not any incentive for them to innovate. And so they, like we talked about with social platforms, they've got to buy it, they've got to ignore it, or they just have to be subject to it. So to me, if there's a way to check another box, bring in a new piece of tech or talent or thinking and unlock that whole new avenue of growth, that's what I'm here to do. That's my whole mission.
That's great, Gavin, because I think to your point, it's just that one more thing to help your business grow exponentially.
Yeah.
And I know how I can bring that one more thing. And I think, Marc, in the similar sessions, that's what you do for people. But going to you, what type of people should reach out? Why should people reach out to Marc? And what type of people do you want to reach out to you?
Actually, it's even an easier question. So I love Gavin's answer. He's looking for people who have got expertise in disparate and arcane ideas, and hopefully you can match them up. I think that's very cool. I usually tell people that I like to meet interesting people. That's really it. The context of that interestingness could be business. They might need to, from a business perspective on my side, they might need legal services. Okay, checkbox. That's pretty mundane, very easy. Most people do not call me for my good looks, which I know is a shock to both of you. They usually call me for my network, and they usually call me specifically for the people that I know that have money that can give them to invest in their companies. So I keep the people that I deal with from an investor standpoint extraordinarily. I mean, almost like in a Fabergé egg. Like I have my relationships with people who are investors are critically important to me. So I keep them very tight from my perspective. I don't like to spend political capital on things that I don't absolutely 100% believe in. The flip side of that is I am dying to fall in love with companies every single day. I wake up in the morning early. I'm a very early riser. I'm typically up long before you both are, even though I know you have young kids at home, Gavin. I'm up really early so I can look up and find out what else is happening, what the news is of the world. I love meeting interesting people, and everybody to me, there's not a single person on earth that doesn't have a story to tell. And so I've never found somebody that has been boring. They might not be interesting to me because they don't have an open mind, but I live and breathe the entrepreneur lifestyle, even though I'm myself not an entrepreneur. And it's something that I like to service, and I like to be a helper. And I'm very much behind the throne helping entrepreneurs grow. So people who are either entrepreneurs or have an entrepreneur mindset, those are the people I really jive with. And if it turns into business from both sides, great. But that's not why I wake up in the morning.
Marc's an entrepreneur. Don't let him fool you. He's just incubating his business for a long time.
Very long time. That's
it's true. It's true. Yeah.
I feel very strongly that entrepreneurs make the world go around. I don't feel like I have personally put myself in the arena the same way a lot of people have. And therefore, it is a disservice to them if I call myself a startup guy or an entrepreneur. That's just the way I look at it. I might be wrong. I don't think it's fair. People who
and yet you're still the guy that people go to whenever they have questions in the CPG space. We're in other things as well.
Well, I learned a long time ago, and I'm not a lawyer, but I work for law firms. So I learned a long time ago, nobody calls a lawyer or a plumber with good news. I get a lot of bad news. I get a lot of problems, but I'm happy to solve them. At least try. Some problems can't be solved. I need to make payroll tomorrow. I have no money. Sorry. But if they've got a business problem, or if they need to just meet that one person, or that have that one idea, or just look at their perspective just slightly differently, if I can help with that, I get what I call psychological profit out of that every single day. I love that. Have you thought about this? Have you looked at this? Have you seen this company? It's, Gavin said it, it's why we do what we do. I very much feel like I'm in, and I hate this word mentor. I have a long whole thing I'm not going to bore you with. Mentors at accelerator incubator programs are not mentors, they're advisors. Mentors help people, advisors help companies. I am very much an advisor. If I can help you individually throughout your career, great. And I have lots and lots of friends that I've been in and out of 4 or 5 different companies of theirs. And yes, I feel like I have mentored them in some aspect, or really just the pure aspect of that. But just helping somebody see around that one little corner, if I can do that once a day, I'm happy. And if I could do it 10 times a day, that's what really grinds my gears. I love it.
That's wonderful. So YJ, what's the type of person you want?
I feel like we're all from the same tribe in the sense that, like, one thing that you mentioned is you don't find anyone boring. I don't find anything boring either, which kind of goes into whatever you're doing, I'll probably find really interesting. And I would love to dig into like why you did this, like what made you passionate about hydraulics and starting a business in hydraulics. What was it about this that made you pursue a career focused on this? Because like you, Gavin, I don't think I have a passion on a specific industry. I would love to have that. I would love to stay focused and say, hey, this is my shining star, my North Star, and everything I want to do, I just want to do that, like for a specific industry or solution. But it's really hard for me to do that. I remember crying to my professor because there was this like Berkman personality test that talks about what your career path might look like. And I remember there was a high interest in both the creative, both in the engineering, both in the music, and both in social. And I remember saying like, hey, I don't know what I want to do. I was so pressured to figure out what that one thing should be. Like I went to U of H and I want to major in every single major that you guys have available. It's like, well, you can't. It's like, why not? It's like there's everything that I enjoy. And I found my love for for the science, for the literature in business and entrepreneurship. Because what's great about entrepreneurship and why I'm so passionate about commercializing your hobbies is like, hey, how can I learn something to the point in which it's valuable to someone, that someone's willing to trade value for it. And so my approach to new hobbies is like, how would I commercialize this? Not because of money, but because I'm just interested, what is it that someone can do something with in which it would be valuable to someone else? And it doesn't matter what it is, if you're interested in guitar. And this is why I think for me is why I enjoy talking to people about, hey, if you're working for someone, do you enjoy it? Or when are you going to quit and do your own thing? Like, I think I'm always passionate about how can I make your life something that you can do something every single day that you love and you enjoy without worrying about doing something you hate. So
I love that. I think that's great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. Anyone. I love talking to people, but I'm also really shy, so I only talk about business because that's the only thing I know. So if it's not about business, I don't know what to talk about. I'm sorry. So how are you going to commercialize your kids, Gavin? Like, that's my go-to topic.
My
YouTube
personality
stars.
test said I was going to be an obstetrician. So apparently I just had a lot of kids and birthed a lot of startups. I would never trust myself delivering a baby. That's such hard work.
I almost did once. I was not happy about it. We barely made it to the hospital with my third kid. It was not a fun situation.
The blood, the smell.
It's gross. They're like little roast beefs. They're not fun.
Did he faint?
I turned a little white. Yeah.
It was not fun. We managed. She's great. She's 11 now, but we almost didn't make it to the hospital on time to deliver her. And I was going to deliver on the side of the road, and I was not happy about that situation. I would have done it, but I wasn't happy about it.
No, we got the easy gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
I've enjoyed this.
This is super fun.
See, the problem is that Gavin and I are both so busy that we never get a chance to just chat. Like, we're always busy. I called Gavin up about a guy called me, a friend of ours, called me a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned your name, and I said, oh, I need to talk to him, and he called Gavin. So we had a 3-way phone call that was And I apologize for that. That was definitely not the plan.
No, that was hilarious. He was in New York, and it's just funny
Yeah.
when we get dialed back into a local number.
And it was just, and I still feel bad about that because I was not expecting that. He's, hold on a second. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought he was going to the bathroom, and all of a sudden there's Gavin on the phone. But the fact is that the biggest problem with COVID, the biggest problem with not just COVID, I mean, that's part of it. Having other activities and being busy with work and family, all that stuff, is we don't get a chance to hang. That's a problem. It's a problem for me. It's been driving me nuts for a year now, since March. I mean, listen, we're going to be in lockdown for, in 5 weeks, we'll have been in lockdown for a single year, 12 months. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And that's 0 events. I think I've gone to maybe 6 separate coffees in 9 months. I could do 6 separate coffees in a day back in 2019 and not blink. And that was just a morning.
I think I've seen Marc at 6 events in a day.
It's happened.
I'm resoling my shoes, and he's still moving on to the next one.
Yeah, but my point is that having these kinds of chats just kind of hang, because I certainly don't have time for this during the day. I don't know about you. I am back to back every half hour. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's not even an hour. We don't even get an hour for meetings anymore. It's half an hour because nobody wants to be on a Zoom for an hour. Although we've been on the Zoom for what? Almost 2 hours, it feels like. This has been great. I've enjoyed it.
No,
Anyway.
thanks, Marc. And it was interesting because you introduced me, Gavin and I met and we really clicked. And like today I was like, hey, you guys just want to get on something? And Gavin was like, yeah, I'm free 7 p.m. today.
Well, here's the dirty secret. He's never free. He's just available.
Yeah.
Moving things around. Yeah.
And that's a shock to me because he's got a lot of stuff going on at home. So the fact that he gave us his time is a miracle. So I appreciate that.
Wonderful wife, wonderful family.
How old's your littlest one right now?
He turns 2 on Valentine's Day.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yep.
That's phenomenal. But here's the worst part about that. You got to make sure he's got the birthday because he's a 2, but you also have the wife and you cannot skip Valentine's Day. So you're stuck. Sorry. All right, gentlemen, I've enjoyed this. This has been great. YJ, thanks for putting this together.
Yes.
Anytime.
And always good seeing both of you. I mean, I wish I saw you in person, but you know, we'll get there one day.
Sounds good.
Yep. Here's a Zoom hug. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Zoom wave. This is, oh, by the way, this is my new thing. Until the end of time, until I stop taking meetings when I'm old and gray, I will always wave at the end of a meeting from now on.
All right, bye guys.
guys.
You have a
Take
good
care.
night.